Yeah, I'm gonna piss real quick, and then we'll do this. One sec.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Okay, I'm back.
All right then.
Yep. Does it say my name is Matchstick?
It's Gluestick.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm gonna start the interview.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start the interview.
Yeah.
So, good morning, good evening, sorry, and welcome to AMN's continuing coverage of the United States Senate
Yeah.
elections. So, good morning, I'm Geography Gamer, and today we're speaking to AMN's continuing Gluestick, who's running to represent the people in the US Senate. This is part of our commitment to bringing you direct insight from candidates shaping the future of our democracy. Gluestick, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about your background. For those who may not be familiar with you, could you walk us through your personal and professional journey that led you here?
Yes. I was invited to this server by Wabbit. And he's really controversial. And I kind of agree that he's gone. And he's really but it happens. But yeah, I'm the leader of the Jim Crow party. We get a lot of shit because of the stuff we say, and that's just how it is. And the last guy you interviewed, we're in a coalition with his party, so we have a lot in common, at least when it comes to dismantling the deep state. So yeah.
Okay, so what inspired you to leap into the area of public office and why the Senate exactly?
So yeah. The Senate, well, essentially, what I
Okay,
want to do is
so what
obtain a
inspired
Senate
you
majority
to leap
so that
into
we
the
can
area of
stop
public office
unfair
and why the
legislation that
Senate
comes from
exactly?
President Marco. And I would get that by forming a coalition with the Jacobin Party.
So what does public service actually mean to you, especially in a time of distrust in government institutions?
Um, it means it means fixing the country and dismantling the corruption that's really eating at the populace and the working class. And I think nobody's really doing a good enough job with that. So I think if I can get in the Senate, then I can really make some changes.
Let's talk about your policy and vision. If voters
Yeah.
send you to Washington, what would be the first three issues you would tackle?
All right. Number one, we are going to impeach Marco. That's the absolute priority and probably the most important one. Because, originally I was a supporter of Marco and his administration. And if you look at Truth News, I even talked about how jacked he is. But I now know that's not true and that he's not even, he doesn't even have muscles. He has an AI filter. So that's something everybody should know. Another thing is we need to pack the courts. You know, Luna is not qualified, and she is the type of deep state operative that I thought Marco was going to get rid of until, he came back into office. And third, hold on, let me think about this one.
Take your time.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're gonna invade Canada. There's a lot of people who talk about not being imperialist, but I think America is a uniquely good country, and it's kind of our right to control other countries, and we're actually helping the people in them by
Let's
conquering
talk
them.
about your policy and vision. Is this a plan to separate Canada or annex it into the United States?
Well, annexing Canada would be liberating Canada.
Okay. So, how do you plan to uphold constitutional rights while ensuring public safety, equity, and trust in government?
Well, I think the current administration doesn't care much for the Constitution. I care a lot about the Constitution, and I do want to see some amendments that make it more reflect the real American Constitution, which don't really exist right now. So, for example, there's no protections for free speech, which that needs to be changed because the main reason that there's no free speech in this country is to prevent criticism of the tranny deep state, and that's a big problem in this country.
All right. How do you view the Senate's role in protecting voting rights and civic participation across the country then?
Well, I think in its current phase, all the Senate can really do is veto the president because the president right now is pushing corrupt policies. And at the moment, I don't know that any of the potential candidates for president are actually opposed to this corruption. So when I get a coalition in the government, hopefully we can bring that to a halt and then we'll have some negotiating room to basically stop the president from pushing more corrupt policies.
What's your stance on addressing political corruption in Washington, and how would you promote ethical leadership?
Well, corruption is definitely the biggest problem. I would see those people removed from the nation who engage in corruption, and that should be the standard. Uh, that should be the standard punishment if you engage in corruption. And yeah, they're not ethical currently, but if Jim Crow had the presidency, it would be probably the most ethical administration of all time. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
Okay, let's talk about military. What is your vision for the United States military's role in both national defense and foreign policy in the coming decade?
We should be the global hegemon, and we should use our military to achieve that. And a big problem with military is supply. A lot of people think in terms of tactics, but that's really the least important aspect. What really matters is making sure that everyone has supplies. And a lot of other countries aren't really capable of doing that. So if we want to achieve that goal, then what we should do is focus on stockpiling even during peacetime. Because if you look at a lot of these other countries and even this country at different times, there really is no focus or there's no preparation, I would say, for war until literally right before it's time to fight the war.
Do you believe the right to vote is under threat today, and what federal protections would you support to ensure free and fair elections?
It's absolutely under threat. If you look at the Senate election, you can see that the tranny deep state has rigged the election, and the American people should have a right to know about this. And Truth News has fought hard to expose this. But once we get Marco out of office, then we'll be able to make sure we have free and fair elections.
So, do you support reforms that would reduce the influence of money in politics and how would these reforms enhance democratic accountability?
Yeah, we should reduce money in politics. People should run for their own personal ideas and not, to fill their pocketbook. But like in terms of reforms we could make, I would say we need laws that stop people from bribing voters. And an example of that is that the country operates basically on the spoil system, where the party in power gives political offices to their fellow party members. And we need legislation to make sure that government offices are filled based on competency rather than party affiliation.
So, would you say you support term limits or structural reforms aimed at making the Senate or Congress more accountable to the people?
I don't support term limits. I don't think we have enough. Like, there's definitely some very smart people in this nation, but I don't think our population is big enough that we could constantly cycle through an entire new government.
So, then how would you approach balancing defense spending with domestic needs if you want to invade Canada?
Yeah, we're going to invade Canada. But for defense spending, honestly, I think each um each state in the nation should have their own stockpile before, and the military should be partially funded by the states, but there will be national defense spending. And to balance that with the budget, it literally is just a matter of not waiting until, the beginning of a war to actually get resources to fight it.
So let's finish off with democracy and accountability. Some Americans
Yeah.
feel that democracy is eroding. What do you say to those who fear their voices no longer matter?
Well, they're absolutely right. The tranny deep state has tried to censor their political opponents and they've rigged elections. Democracy is at threat. But if we can win too big to rig, too big to rig, then we can make the changes we need and people can have their votes heard.
So, what practical steps would you take to increase transparency and constituent access to your office and decision making?
Well, for one, I think there should be a cabinet channel that should be publicly visible to everybody here so people can really know what the presidential administration is up to and they can know if they're scheming and that type of thing.
So, would you support bipartisan initiatives to defend democracy norms, democratic norms, even if they run counter to your party's interests?
Absolutely.
All right. How can elected officials restore trust in institutions, and what role should civic education play in that effort?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
All right. How can elected officials restore trust in institutions, and what role should civic education play in that effort?
Well, I mean, if by that you mean that the public is uninformed of what's really going on, I agree. And we should have some level of education when it comes to different aspects of the game that people don't really understand. And I saw you brought up slime fun in the previous interview, and that's really important because there is some very important stuff that you need to do with that would benefit the nation's wealth and allow us to have levels of production that aren't comparable with other countries.
And lastly, how would your office engage with communities that feel disconnected or disillusioned by current national policies?
Well, I think if I were in government, the policies I would push would speak for themselves, and I think the people would understand that it really benefits them regardless of what type of person they are, or where they come from.
And lastly, before we wrap up, is there anything else you feel has not been addressed that you'd like voters to hear about your campaign or your views on freedom, transparency, and the role of government?
Yes, I want to call out the corrupt judge Aaron Miles. He is probably the most corrupt judge in this entire country. So there was recently a trial yesterday. A lot of people probably saw it, where Aaron Miles engaged in judicial misconduct at a very high degree. Where, for example, he pushed a verdict using his verdict was based on witness testimonies, and the witness themselves admitted they were only there to disrupt the trial. And the prosecution in this case was a member of the Supreme Court. And Aaron Miles decided that he was going to elevate the case to the Supreme Court. So that means that the Supreme Court, aka the prosecution, would be overseeing their own case. So yeah, Aaron Miles should resign as a judge.
Do you believe that the current Supreme Court of the United States is corrupt?
Yes.
And for those inspired by your message, how can they learn more, volunteer, or support your campaign efforts?
Just gotta vote for Jim Crow. We have to win too big to rig.
And any final messages you have for viewers?
Yes, we need to stand up against corruption if we really want this nation to be powerful, influential, and if we want people to have, hey, shut up, Mile or Aaron. But yeah, we need to stand up to corruption and expose it at every level and democratize the nation further so that people have more say in the country. And that's all.
That's all the time we have for today's interview. Gluestick, thank you again for joining us and sharing your
Thanks
vision
for having
with
me.
AMN and our viewers. And to everyone watching, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay tuned as we continue our comprehensive coverage of this year's Senate elections. Democracy thrives when we all take part.
Hell yeah.